Greetings, brothers and sisters. I am your lecturer for today, Sister Ebony Stevenson. I am going to be continuing my lecture from Sunday, which was called The Boycotts Continue. Welcome to the Toma Nation's weekly Sunday worship service. Weekly Wednesday study class. As you guys know, we do so many Sunday worship services, and that's worship, WARSHIP. If you would like more information about this lecture or any of our previous lectures, you can always reach out to us here at Toma Nation at 773-846-3091. I'm going to move this banner a little bit so that you can see my face. Hold on 1 second. There we go. There I am. All right. I'm going to begin, as always, by reciting our opening. In the name of the everlasting Father, he that causes all that exists to exist, he that is self-existent, he who directs the sunships of millions and trillions of years, and he who made time the seed of the universe. Known among the ancient Kemites or Egyptians as Amun-Ra and Aten, among the Hebrews as Ansalv, Yahweh, and Elohim, among the Christians as Lord, God, and Jehovah, among the Muslims and Islamic world as Allah, the one God, among the Rastafarians as Jah, Rastafari, among the Yoruba tribes of West Africa as Olodumare, Ashu, and many other Orisha names. I bear witness that all of these names refer to the same and one Almighty God, and it is to him whom I give reverence and to whom I submit. I boldly proclaim that we, the descendants of those black men and women who survived the transatlantic slave trade, are the lost 13 tribe, born here in North America, and are of a Nubian Kemetic lineage. I further proclaim that the blood of all the nations of the world flow through our veins. I greet you in the ancient yet holy words of peace, Hotep, Shalom, Assalamu alaikum, Habaragani, Alafia, and Ashe. Thank you so much for joining us for our Toma Nation weekly Wednesday study class at 8 p.m. If you would like more information about this lecture or any of our previous lectures, you can always feel free to shoot us a text at 773-846-3091. Or if you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube, drop us a comment and tell us what you think about this lecture. And if you would like an invitation to come to any of our previous events, always feel free to reach out to us. Now, on Sunday, I had a lecture titled The Boycott Continues. And for those of you who are familiar with us here at Toma Nation, during the summer months of June, July, and August, we observe economics. So we talk about economics. In June, we talk about S.B. Fuller. In July, we were talking about Dr. Claude Anderson. We were talking about Black businesses. In August, we've talked about the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. It is the International Marcus Garvey holiday is at the end of the month on August 31st, which we observe every year as a Black holiday. And then August is also National Black Business Month. And here in Illinois is National Black Business Month in honor of our founder of the United Black American Progress Association, Dr. Webb Evans, also known as Mr. Black Black. And it's also amazing that the founder of our movement here in Chicago of the Toma Nation, Minister Raheem Kassad-Aten, is the former president of the United Black American Progress Association, who was designated president by Dr. Webb Evans, but is currently the board chairman of the United Black American Progress Association. And so when we talk about the concept of boycotts, we know that boycotts are not new in the Black community. Boycotts has been an economic strategy, a tactic that we have used in order to get our point across and hold people accountable who are not treating us right as Black people here in America. And there's been so many boycotts. One of the most famous boycotts that people sometimes think about, or when you think of boycotts, sometimes we think about historical boycotts. We think about the Montgomery bus boycott, with Dr. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and all of the organizers and regular smuggler community folks that work together as an alliance, as a coalition, in order to make those boycotts successful, and all of the other civil rights leaders who were a part of that. And so when you look at this concept of boycotts, it's practicing a strategy called economics is the highest form of warfare. Because, see, we have to understand that where we find ourselves here in America, America doesn't care about our tears. America doesn't care about our screams. America doesn't care about our bodies being hung from these trees. America doesn't care about these black babies, these black boys and girls who are being murdered. America doesn't care if our babies are being shot in the back by racists. Like, America doesn't care. It doesn't matter to America. It doesn't matter to white people in America, whether we are minding our businesses, whether we are having a family reunion and a white man chooses to shoot at us and it's no consequences, whether we are walking in a park playing in the park with the toy gun. America doesn't care about our lives. It doesn't matter if we're getting Skittles from a convenience store. America doesn't care about our lives. It doesn't matter if we are thinking that we're with people who we assume were our friends. America doesn't care about our lives. It doesn't matter if our lives are in danger and we have to practice self-defense. What we use as self-defense, they don't view it as self-defense because they don't view us as having the right to defend our lives. And as we are in this cycle, we're in this cycle where we are really seeing how America thinks about us, and we're really seeing how whites and non-Black people think about Black people. And I mentioned this in my lecture. We always talk about this concept of Black people have a history of helping and supporting everyone, even when our necks are being stood on, even when we're fighting for our own survival. We have a history of helping people and supporting everyone else. But when it comes down to it, we have to understand that as Black people, we have no friends. Everyone has showed us how they really feel. I mentioned that in the lecture on Sunday when the Latina lady was being racist, who was the police officer, and using nigger with the hard R and all of these things that she was doing against Black people, that she simply hated Black people. And then when Black people called attention to it and said, yo, she needs to be fired, and we were demanding accountability, so many people in the Latino community said that we were overreacting. When we've been demanding accountability around the Nolan Wells case, so many people have showed their butts on social media and talking about his life doesn't matter. And all of these cases where the young Black male who was murdered by his foster siblings, to the young Black lady who was assaulted by the white girls who were in her foster care placement, who beat her up when she was pregnant, who should be charged with attempted murder, to, Cyrus being shot in the back by Rick Child and him being acquitted like that child's life didn't matter. And when we talk about the situation with Cyrus Belton and his mom calling for boycotts when the verdict was announced, and then some Asian people getting on social media, showing their whole behind and telling us, oh, we don't need you to support our businesses. Let me tell you something. There is one thing about Black people that everybody should know, is that we are never afraid of a challenge. And so when Black people start calling for boycotts, across the country, and Black people were participating in these boycotts and these businesses were losing money, then they come on social media saying, oh, it's not all of us, some Southeast Asians don't get along with these Asians and all of these things, and if we don't know the difference, then we racist. And then people saying, oh, well, you shouldn't punish a whole race of people just for the act of a few. And I said this in my lecture, but I just want to clarify, when we're talking about boycotting Asian businesses, it is not because the business is Asian. We're talking about boycotting businesses that are disrespectful to us. And we know for a fact that in many cities across America, the city government allows these businesses to come into Black communities, but they won't allow these same businesses to come in white communities. They won't allow these same businesses to come in Latino communities. And the thing that we also have to understand is that in many of the cities, even here in Chicago, that it is easier for someone who doesn't look like us to come in our community and open up a business than it is for us who are residents of the community, who live in the community, who worship in the community, who some of us work in the community, and our dollars are in these communities. It is more hard for us to open up a business. And that is by design. We get so many stories of Black people saying, man, I'm trying to open up a business, but they won't let me get my city license, or they won't let me do this, or they won't let me do that. And outsiders can come and open up a business and be up. We look one day, the business ain't there. Look the next day, the business is there. We be like, oh, where did this business come from? And so we have to understand that we have no friends here in America. We may have some allies, and we have to have a real conversation about what allyship is to Black people. But we have no friends. And we got to be real about that, because we're in this time where the wool has been pulled from off of our eyes, and we're really seeing how people really think about Black people, truly in their hearts, not what they've been hiding all this time and been cursing us under their breath, but how they truly feel about us. And I don't know about you, but I would rather know how someone feels about me than to have somebody fake the funk and act like that they love me or that they like me, and then all along they cursing me and they mad and under their breath. And so this is what we're talking about when we're talking about these boycotts. We're talking about boycotting businesses that are disrespectful to us. We're talking about boycotting businesses that don't support our communities. And one of the interesting things doing this boycott conversation, in addition to everything that's going on with the boycotting Asian businesses, we were also talking about this ongoing boycott with Target, and the collaboration that Jay-Z recently had with Target. And I wanted to share this video just so you guys can see it. Hold on a second. Let me go to... I'm going to share this video with you guys. Oh, hold on. Let me see. I'm going to share my screen. And then we're going to go to the boycott. Share.
A year and a half in, and it seems we still aren't on the same page about the Target.
Oh, hold on. Let me try it again. Failed that time. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Okay, hold on. Now let me go back to the beginning.
A year and a half Catherine, and it seems we still aren't on the same page about the Target boycott. It seems the most sacred thing about it was the religious leaders who tried to say it was over. Oh, and that video Beyonce released. You know, telling the tender story of helping remove her man's locks right before he signed a deal with our problematic fave retail giant.
Message.
Rapper and mogul Sean Jay-Z Carter is teaming up with Target to release a limited edition vinyl of his debut album, Reasonable Doubt. It'll be sold exclusively at Target starting June 26th. But is this really the flex Target thinks it is? For a company whose motto is expect more, pay less, we might as well expect less and pay more attention. Target knows it's in hot water, and it's affecting its bottom line. If it wasn't, why else would they be pandering to the same people who would probably opt to have a meal with Jay-Z over taking that $500,000 cash? Not to mention, the numbers back it up. Since the boycott began last February, Target has lost billions in shareholder value, changed CEOs, and cut 8% of its global workforce. Boycotters have been clear about what could turn all of this around. They're asking for full restoration of Target's DEI policies. Instead, the company is dangling a 30-year-old album, albeit a classic, right in our faces.
Message.
Which brings us to Blue Ivy's internet holding Hova accountable too. Now, some folks have pointed out that celebrities, time and time again, will go where the money resides, no matter what the public opinion says. But others say it's unfair to pin the blame on Jay-Z alone, given that other Black celebrities and groups have also partnered with Target during the boycott. Think about it though. If you're a small business owner, selling at Target might be your best bet. But if you're a billionaire, what do you need Target for? Keep in mind, this is the same Jay-Z who said we need to move past kneeling in the wake of the Colin Kaepernick protests so we could get to more action, right as he made a multi-million-dollar deal with the NFL. So we can't necessarily knock the hustle, but we can raise an eyebrow at it.
Message.
Now, the real question is, how many people are gonna buy it? Whether it's the vinyl itself or Target's attempt to win us back. And when it comes to the Jigga Man himself, are we feeling it? Or is this just another example of him putting money over morals? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. A year and a half.
Now, that video was very, excuse me, interesting. And the reason why it was interesting, so when we talk about this concept of the boycott continues, and we talk about, you know, the call for the boycott because Target did away with its DEI policies, and really its commitment to support Black businesses as soon as they had the chance, right? They jumped ship. And so this boycott is interesting because it's had a real economic impact on Target. And that's what I want us to see when we talk about economics is the highest form of warfare. And we're talking about doing these boycotts. You know, when we look at like the civil rights movement and we look at, you know, Black Lives Matter, and we look at all the times where we're risen up and we fought back. And, you know, we have to understand that protesting serves its purpose. Protesting is a tactic, but it's not a strategy all unto itself, right? And so when we talk about really hitting, you know, enemies and businesses, elected officials, hitting them where it hurts, it's all about economics. And so if you notice in the video, not only did she mention that they've lost billions of dollars, they've had to change CEOs, and they've had to let go 8% of its global workforce. That is a huge economic impact. And that concept of, okay, the boycotts are going on, what should we do? And then for them to dangle this collaboration with Jay-Z in front of us, you know, as this was going to bring Black people back in Target. You know, you're coming in Target to buy the 30-year-old album, and then like you're gonna get more stuff from Target, and then, you know, that, so kind of like a fast, right? You know, like when you're doing a fast, and let's say you're doing a juice fast, and so you avoid eating solid food, but when you get done, you got to have something to break your fast. So it's the same thing like they're doing a boycott, right? They're trying to get you to break the boycott by coming in and buying a Jay-Z album because we can't resist Jay-Z, right? We can't resist a 30-year-old album, right? And so we're going to go in Target, break our boycott, and then, ease right back on into our consuming spending habits of, buying things from Target. And that's kind of crazy. Um, and we it's crazy because a lot of people, we aren't falling for it, and also being held accountable, because she did also make an interesting point. And the interesting point was, you know we can understand, there's a boycott, and you may be a small Black business, and a collaboration with Target might really just, set you off, and, let you be able to keep your people employed, and let you be able to hire more people from the community. We understand that. But she made the distinction that Jay-Z is already a billionaire. So he didn't need this collaboration with Target. But we also have to understand that, you know, Jay-Z showed us where his loyalties lied when he told us, when Colin Kaepernick was kneeling, when he told us that to get past the kneeling, right? And then he turns around and inks that huge deal with the NFL while we were still protesting the NFL, and because how they were treating Colin Kaepernick and him kneeling, right? And so it's just interesting, just sometimes, to see where, and I'm pretty sure, during the back in the day, during the Montgomery bus boycotts, I'm pretty sure there were people who were like, man, the bus companies are losing money. Like, let's let this bus boycott go, and then let's do something else. And I'm pretty sure they also faced their own people who probably had a similar sentiment, but that did not stop them from continuing to boycott and bankrupt those bus companies. And so we have got to have the same consistency. We have got to have the same commitment when we are talking about boycotting businesses that are disrespectful to us. And as I said before, and some people will take this video or any of our previous videos, and they'll feel like, oh, well, like, that's racist, or they're talking about practicing racism. No, we're not talking about practicing racism, because I mentioned this in my lecture. I can talk to any Black person and talk to them about, have you ever had an experience being inside an Asian store inside the city where somebody was disrespectful to you, somebody followed you around the store? It doesn't even have to be an Asian owned store. It can be an Arab owned store. It can be a Latino owned store. It doesn't matter. Have you ever had that experience? I have. Of someone following me around the store like I'm about to steal. I have had the experience of being in the store and somebody being disrespectful. And so here, when we talk about the boycotts, we're not just talking about the concept of boycotting. We're also talking about doing a concept that Dr. Webb Evans liked to practice, called doing this and that. So not just doing the boycott, but where do you funnel the money from the boycott to? That's a very simple answer. Black-owned businesses. So we're not asking you to change your lifestyle. We're asking you to change who you're giving your money to. For example, you a sister, and you faithfully get your nails done, your manicure, your pedi, get your eyebrows done every other week when you get paid, or every Friday when you get paid. Like, that's your routine. That's your self-care. We're not telling you to stop your self-care. We're not telling you to stop, making yourself feel comfortable. We're telling you to, instead of choosing the convenience of a store in your community that's disrespectful, we're asking you to choose an alternative about seeking out a Black business. And instead of that money going into that business and leaving the community, We're asking you to instead take those funds and support a Black owned business so that that money can circulate in the community. Because we've had this conversation many a times before. Dr. Claude Anderson has had this conversation. Dr. Webb Evans had this conversation. Minister Raheem Kassad-Austin has had this conversation. What happens when money doesn't circulate in the community? Money is not evil. Money is a tool. Money can be used for good and money can be used for evil. But we're talking about circulating the dollar in our community. Look at it this way, as Minister Raheem says, money is the lifeblood of the community. When that lifeblood is cut off, when that lifeblood doesn't circulate, what happens? The community dies, the community deteriorates. And we can see that. We can see that no matter where we are in America. It doesn't matter if you're Black people living in the inner city. It doesn't matter if you're Black people living in the suburbs. It doesn't matter if you're Black people living in rural Black towns. When Black dollars are not circulating, the lifeblood of the community is cut off and it deteriorates. And I mentioned this before, and we also know that this trend of disinvestment in our communities is by design. You can look at redlining, you can look at all the things that have been done to our communities, and it's been by design. You can look at this trend of here in Chicago, where they talk about, Target did it, Walgreens did it, Whole Foods did it, and we can talk about, people, the stores leaving the community. And then the first thing everybody and their mama start saying is, oh, they left because it was a high theft. They left because people were stealing. They left because they wasn't making money. Target, before they left the Chatham community, they were making money hand over fist. And we have to understand that when people always try to point a single thing on us, be like, oh, that there was a large amount of theft in the community. There are plenty of Walmarts and Targets and other businesses that are in podunk white towns where there's a high poverty level and there's a high level of theft. And those businesses are still what? They're still there because they're still making money. Target alone, for the fact that there was no grocery store right here, that the closest grocery store was major grocery store was either Jewel Osco on 87th and the Dan Ryan or Jewel Osco on 95th and Stony Island, right? That those were the major grocery stores. And so Target was making hand over fist off a SNAP, right? Selling food and items to the community. So was Walgreens. And especially when Walgreens changed their format and really, really kind of started looking like a liquor store almost, was selling all of this liquor. And we also have to look at not just the profits from the regular sales that these stores were making, how these stores also got buku tax benefits from the city in order to open up. And then they just take those funds and then they run and leave another empty building in the community. And, we get so caught up in saying, oh, trying to beg them to stay and all of these other things, instead of let's find a Black alternative to fill that space. Let's find a Black grocery store to fill that space. We have an amazing Black grocery store in the suburbs called Living Fresh. I believe that's the name of it. Instead of reaching out to a Black business like that and offering them those tax incentives to come open up a grocery store here, we want to beg the same people who did us wrong to treat us right and make that make sense. And I know this, for some people, when you're talking about boycotts, some people have never done a boycott. But guess what? It's never too late. I mentioned this before, just like I mentioned the case of, diverting money from the Asian, nail salons and estheticians that are in our community. It's the same thing with beauty supplies. You don't have to stop doing what you're doing. You don't have to stop buying your wigs. You don't have to stop buying your weave. You don't have to stop, buying your earrings and your lip glosses and getting your rubber bands and all of these things that people get from beauty supply stores. You know, all we're asking is that you divert that money to a black owned business. And we have so many black owned businesses in our community that are actually, for the community and give back to the community and support back to school drives and, give away things during the holidays and all of these things. Let's support those businesses. That support a business like Living Fresh when they've done so many giveaways and give backs to the community because the community have been supporting them. We want to see more of that. Let's support those businesses. Let's support those beauty supplies and barbershops and nail salons who are giving back to the community. I remember there was I think it was a nail salon, and it was either Mother's Day. I think it was for Mother's Day. Um, I think it was or maybe it was a barbershop. And they were doing back to school haircuts and all of these things. Let's support these black owned businesses who are out here and supporting black people who are supporting their community. Let's support these black owned businesses who are hiring our youth. Every summer, our youth have to go beg people who clearly do not have their best interests in heart, who don't like us, to hire them. So instead of putting them in those positions, instead of putting them in a position that they know these people clearly don't care about them, they have to go beg, trying to get a job at Target. I just saw a video of a young lady. She works at Target. Target had a week where so many people called off, and she was filling in for the people who called off. That's a good employee. Someone doesn't show up for work, and you have an employee who say, "Hey, I'll fill in for that person. I'll fill in for this person." And did you think Target was like, "Oh, you a good employee. We're gonna make sure you get your 40 hours." The very next week, she wasn't even on the schedule. That's because these corporate businesses, these global multinational businesses, these local businesses in our community who are disrespectful to us, they're not loyal. They take our dollar, and that dollar gets swept up in their economy. These Asian businesses take our dollar, and that dollar goes to wherever the community that they live in, which is typically has a high amount of white people, because let's just be honest, we know Asians, just like some Asians, just like some Latinos and other folks, the closer that they can get to white people is the better they feel about themselves. That's why even among the Asian community, there's racism between the the lighter Asians and the darker skinned Asians. Even if you're darker, even if you get darker because you work out you have a job that's out in the sun, they even have jokes about that because they do not like dark skin. It doesn't matter what Asian it is. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the Chinese. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Koreans. There's this whole thing about covering yourself up when you get out in the sun because they will hate to get dark. And that just goes to show you, like when we really look at this concept of us not having any friends, when we talk about an economic strategy, we don't need everybody to implement it. When they did the Montgomery bus boycotts, all black people wasn't boycotting. I'm pretty sure they had the people who was like, we gonna get on the bus regardless. Like, we got to get on the bus to go to work. We got to get on the bus to do this. We got to get on the bus to do that. It's always those people. And that's okay. Because there have been greater impact by a handful of people in this country over and over and over and over again that black people have been successful with a handful of dedicated, committed people. And that is exactly what we need right now. Because when we look at all of these lectures that we've had about modern day lynching and the new noose and talking about these lynchings and talking about this racial terror in America and how it's only going to get worse and how we need to come together and strategize how we can support each other and be there for each other. Because we have to look at, we are in this season because we are living in revelations and we're seeing real time the fall of America. We're all of the wool is being pulled from off of our eyes. We've seen the releasing, oh well, the unredacting of the documents about the UFOs. We've seen all of these things showing us that this is how corporations are getting down. We're seeing these high inflation levels. And when I say high inflation, just I was on looking at groceries on Jewel. And do you know how much Jewel Osco was selling a gallon of milk? Do you think it was $5? Do you think it was $7? A regular smuggler, non-organic, random, cheapo brand of milk was $10. They were selling a gallon of milk for $10. That's insane. That's really insane. And so when we look at this inflation and we look at the high food costs, but then also we're looking at, we've seen so many food recalls recently than we've ever seen before. And when we're looking at all of these things that this regime is doing, that we're living under right now, with pulling back, affirmative action, and just pulling back all of these so-called protections that our people fought for, that our people died for, that our people bled for. And when I say this concept of us not having any friends, take for example affirmative action. See, this is the thing about Black people. We always understood that affirmative action, it wasn't just for us, it was for everybody. Black people always fought for these things that didn't just benefit Black people, it benefited all of the non-Blacks. If you look at affirmative action, it even benefited what? Women. But when it comes time to fight with us, everybody catch ghosts. When it's time to fight for something that we believe in and want to join forces together, everybody catch ghosts. But when this government is putting a foot on the neck of somebody else, what's the first thing they say? Oh, where's the Black people? What do the Black people think? Everybody want our support, but don't nobody want to support us. And when I say this, I don't want you to think individually. I'm talking about collectively. I'm talking about en masse. And so we get caught up as Black people saying like, well, oh, I know this person is doing this, and I know this person is doing that, and I know this person is doing that. We're not talking about individually. We're talking about collectively, because we live in a country where we're being told on a daily basis that the life of a white person is worth more than the life of a Black person. And we have to be real clear that we're seeing this. And we're seeing it on repeat, on repeat, on repeat, on repeat, on repeat, on repeat, on repeat. Then it's come to the point where somebody gets found, is found lynched, and we're like, oh my God, not another one. And it's not going to stop. It's not going to end. It's only going to get worse. And so we need to strategize and come together how we can hold these forces accountable. Because the first thing I keep seeing is, people talking about, oh, what the police doing? Where's the police? Where's the FBI? Where's the National Guard? We have to realize historically, because see, we have to understand our history. What is this? The concept of a Sankofa. You really have to understand where you came from to see where you're going. And we have to understand that history has already shown us what happens when white people show their butt. History has already shown us what happens to us when non-Blacks show their butt. Now, when we look at back in the day, and we look at the lynchings, and we look at the target of the lynchings, and we look at this push to lynch those who are teaching people how to read, to lynch those who are hiring people, to lynch those who could read. When we talk about this effort, right, to lynch Black males, right? They were just talking about there was a situation where some black boys, and we know we're in Chicago, so we know about Emmett Till, and we know about that heifer line, and we know about and then that's also, I'm not trying to get out on the tangent, but that's also something with us. We have the same in the black community: snitches get stitches. But that's not necessarily the case, because we know situations where snitches walking around just alive and having a fun time, just living the best life, right? And then we have, I don't even remember her name, but then we have this heifer. I can't remember her name. I'm just gonna call her the white heifer for all points and purposes of this conversation. Well, we had this heifer who knew she lied on Emmett Till, and that she was just able to just live her life, have children and grandchildren, and just breathe the air while Emmett Till was horribly murdered. He wasn't the only one. They just did a showing of these black boys where a white girl smiled at them, and because the white girl smiled at them, the white mob murdered them. And you might say, well, we were just talking about police, and we were just talking about the FBI, and we were just talking about the National Guard, and we were just talking about, how does this relate to what you're saying right now? Do you not think, and this is historical fact, you can go look it up yourself, when white people were lynching us, and when we were being hung from a tree, they didn't just hang us from a tree. They disemboweled us. They castrated men. They cut open the abdomen of black women who were pregnant so that their babies fell out of their bodies while they were still alive. And then, after they tortured us and hung us, they still took pieces of our body. They took men's penises. They took fingers. They took pieces of our body. They pickled them. And so I think there's this, I forgot what book it is, and it talks about how white people eating us, consuming us, because they thought that by eating us, that they would gain something. There's like also documented cases of, there was a popular doctor, and he's quoted saying, black people's skin makes the best leather. And he had belts and shoes made of the skin of our ancestors. And I said all that to say, do you think that when these lynchings were occurring, that the local sheriff and the local police were not a part of it? Do you think that these things were happening and they didn't know? That they didn't bring their family? Because the lynching back in the day was a spectacle. People would bring their family like they were watching the movie, like it's movie time. And you got your popcorn, you got your chips, you got a soda, and you're watching and taking glee of someone being tortured and murdered. And that's gleeful to you. We got to be real about the people that we're dealing with. That young lady, one of the most recent lynchings, who were hung from a tree, that they had to get the fire truck to pull her body down, who was found behind an abandoned house. When those white boys took that little black boy down to the creek, and he thought that they were gonna go swimming. He thought, oh, they woke him up in the morning like, oh, we gonna go play, we gonna go swimming. He thought that he was just gonna go down to the creek and have fun. But no, they were diabolical. They took a knife down there with them because they woke up and had the intention of murdering that child. just like they murdered Nolan Wells. When those white girls got that black girl drunk who was pregnant and who was in foster, I think she was in foster care, she was in a group home. And when they filmed themselves beating her, pile driving her, and on all her sides, knowing she was pregnant. When you look at Carmelo's case, and you look at those white boys continually bullying him and harassing him to the point where he had to carry a pocket knife to feel safe. And then when he had to use the pocket knife, when his life felt threatened, they gave him 35 years for defending himself. This is why I said in the beginning of my lecture, it doesn't matter what we're doing. It doesn't matter if we're watering our neighbor's plants. It doesn't matter if we're on the property of our condo, sitting at the pool with our children. White people are harassing us. It doesn't matter if we spend hundreds of $1,000s to buy a house in the nice neighborhood with green parks and no trash and no crime and all of these things, to be walking in a park to have people harass us. It doesn't matter if we buy a property in these neighborhoods and people are not coming up on our property, knocking on our door, asking us, who are we? It doesn't matter if we're just simply going to the store, minding our business, and being harassed by white people in the parking lot. It doesn't matter if Black people are simply breathing. The concept of us breathing and being alive is an affront to white people. And they're in this season where they feel boldened that they can attack us. Those bad thoughts, those hateful thoughts, those anti-Black thoughts that have promulgated in their mind, now they feel that they can act on them. And this is why we have to come together, because we can't keep fighting fires over here and fires over there. We need to come together, whether it's locally or regionally or nationally, that we need to come together around these racial terrors. That we need to come together and have a collective strategy of what do we do when something happens in our area? How can we join forces to push accountability on law enforcement, to push accountability on the government? We are stronger when we fight together. We are stronger when we unite together. And so we really have to think about this issue, dealing with these boycotts. We are stronger when we boycott together. And I have said this before. It doesn't matter, when I was in my lecture on Sunday, because some people they think about something just on a surface level, like, oh man, I still got to buy my hair, or I still got to buy my nails, or I still got to buy this. But this is the thing. Sis, this message is for you, black woman, black woman, black woman. You can see what I got on right now. You can see my lovely black and green that I got on right now. I'm not telling you to stop buying your wigs. Those of you, sis, that you love that 30-inch bust down lace front, I'm not telling you to stop buying it. I'm just telling you, instead of blinding from an Asian business, to go spend that money at a Black-owned beauty supply. It's so many sisters who sell wigs. It's so many sisters who out here who got these businesses. Take that money from that business that's not circulating those dollars in our community and put it to the business that's in our community. I am so tired when we talk about we spend trillion dollars, and so much of that money does not circulate in our community. Our money puts the children of other races through college. Our money puts other races to retirement. Our money allows other races to buy business 2, business 3, business 4. Our money sends other races' families on vacation. Our money, our hard-earned dollars, is the retirement fund of someone who doesn't look like us. And when I say this, I'm not just talking about Asian businesses. I'm talking about the multinational corporations that are in our community too that are disrespectful. And like this concept of boycotting Target. We got to hold these businesses accountable. And the only thing that they understand is when we hit their pocketbook. That is the only thing they understand. And then I want to let me go in and share one more video. But if you like this lecture and you would like more information about this lecture or any of our previous lectures, you can always drop us a comment if you are watching on Facebook and YouTube, or you can shoot us a text at 773-846-3091. Hold on one second. Hold on a second. Let me share this video, and then I'm going to give a couple comments, and then we're going to get ready to close out. If you have enjoyed what you have heard and you would like to support our grassroots movement here in Chicago, you can shoot us a Cash App at $Toma Nation Chicago. That's TOMANATION Chicago 13. Once again, that's $Toma Nation Chicago 13. Any donation is greatly appreciated. Like I said, we are a grassroots movement here in Chicago, and we would really appreciate your support. Now I'm going to go in and share this video, and then I'm going to get ready to close out.
Speaking specifically to the Asian community right now, we need to stop pretending like
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Let me do that again.
the response for some Asian Americans.
Hold on one second. Let me start from the beginning.
Specifically to the Asian community right now, we need to stop pretending like anti-Blackness does not exist in our community, as if it's not a problem, because it is. We see it in the stereotypes that get repeated in our homes, in the way some people talk about Black communities, the excuses people make when Black people are harmed, and in the silence that follows when accountability is needed. The response for some Asian Americans for the killing of Cyrus Carmack Belton has been deeply disappointing. Instead of centering a 14-year-old Black child who lost his life, some people rushed to defend Rick Chow, justify the shooting, or shift blame onto Cyrus himself. That should disturb all of us. We cannot keep demanding solidarity from other communities when anti-Blackness within our own community goes unchallenged. We cannot talk about the racism Asian Americans face while refusing to acknowledge prejudice that exists in our own families and social circles. The model minority myth has convinced some Asian Americans that proximity to whiteness will protect us. It will not. That myth was created to divide communities of color and to encourage us to see ourselves as separate from the struggles of Black Americans. When we buy into that mentality, we become participants in a system that harms all of us. Accountability is not anti-Asian. Calling out anti-Blackness is not anti-Asian. Using to excuse harmful behavior because the person involved is Asian is not anti-Asian. It is the bare minimum. If we are serious about justice, then we need to be willing to confront uncomfortable truths about our own community. That means challenging anti-Black comments when we hear them. That means rejecting stereotypes. That means listening when Black people tell us about their experiences. And that means recognizing that solidarity is a commitment. It is not a slogan that you wear, that you can just slap on whatever you want. Cyrus Carmack Belton deserved to grow up. He deserved to be safe. He deserved better than the assumptions and the fears that ended his life.
Let me educate y'all a little bit, just to make sure that we all on the same page. Aside from the fact that he's a 14-year-old carrying a gun with a laser, pointing it on social media, and all of the other stuff, right? Because I've had these conversations.
So I just wanted to share that video because, you know, there's a lot going on in America. And once again, when it rain, what is that? When it rains in America, it's I forgot the saying. There's a saying among Black people, like when it rains in America, it storms in Black America, or when it rains in America, Black America has a hurricane or a tornado. And so when we understand, all of these things going on with this anti-Black racism, with this racial terror, with these hangings and this violence, and then also this tsunami of guns in our community, because so many of us, and this is for Black people. This whole lecture is for Black people. When I talk on Toma Nation, when we're talking on Toma Nation, we're talking to Black people. We're speaking to our people. When we look at all of the things that we go through, and we look at this concept of so many of us are just struggling, and we want to transition from surviving to thriving. We really have to have a conversation about what's going on in our country, because we can no longer pretend that this is a class issue. We can no longer pretend that this is a money issue, because you can be rich. You can be a rich nigga, get it at the mud, and you still getting janked out your car by the cops, thrown on the side of a vehicle, and getting your butt whooped. You can still be in the store minding your business and have somebody walking around following you around the store. You can still be you can be a rich one, and you can be trying to get into the higher end stores and still experience racism because they don't want your money. You can have hundreds of thousands of dollars inside of your bank account, and you can go into the bank to withdraw some of your money, and the bank can call the police on you. Racial harassment. And so this is not a class issue. This is not a money issue. This is an anti-Black issue. This is for as long as we've been on these shores, and this anti-Blackness that is ingrained into the very fabric of America. This anti-Blackness that is ingrained to everything. And this isn't something that we're saying happenstance. This isn't a guess. The data shows from us Black people being on the economic bottom in this country behind Latinos, that Latino families have more net worth than Black families. And when I say Black families, I mean the Black families who are descendants of our ancestors who survived the transatlantic slave trade, the Black families who are descendants of who were enslaved, the Black families who survived Reconstruction, the Black families who fought in the Civil Rights Movement, who fought in the Black nationalist movements. The same Black families who faced redlining, the same Black families who built up the unions to support everyone, but are the ones who are always attacked in these union jobs. We have to understand that anti-Blackness is seeped into the very fabric of this country. Anti-Blackness, anti-Godness, ungodliness is seeped to the very nature of America. And this is why in Revelation, God said, I'm going to save America for myself. We have to understand that here in America, we are God's chosen people. We were created to be the vicegerents on this planet Earth. And as we see this, not just the falling of America, but as we see the earth cleansing itself of its destroyers, we have to get in line. This means we got to study more, get closer to the Creator. This means it doesn't matter if you are reading the Holy Bible. It doesn't matter if you're reading the Holy Quran. It doesn't matter if you're reading ancient Kemetic texts, understanding that it doesn't matter, like you heard us in our opening. It doesn't matter what you call. If you call the divine essence God, if you call it the Creator, if you call it Allah, it doesn't matter. If you call it Yahweh, it doesn't matter. It's the same divine energy. And as Black people, we must come together under this divine energy and fight together to fight against the forces that are committed to destroy us. I hope that this lecture was engaging for you. I hope that the light that I put out was absorbed by you, that you absorbed this message, because we really, really, really have to figure out how we can join forces so that we can be together so we don't get caught lacking. There's a scripture, I forgot what chapter it is in the Holy Bible, where it says something along the lines of, they sowed tares amongst the wheat while the people were sleeping. They sowed tares among the wheat while the people were sleeping. I want you to Google that scripture. You put it into your chat GPT, put it into your Cloud AI, and just get where that scripture is coming from. That they sowed tares among the wheat while the people were sleeping. That they sowed tares among the wheat while the people were sleeping. That they hung our people while the people were sleeping, that they murdered our people while the people were sleeping, that they're killing our children while the people were sleeping, that we're so caught up in this entertainment and all of these other things and all of these distractions that we can't come together and fight against the very people who have a denial objective to kill us. I leave you as I greeted you in the ancient words of our fathers of peace, Hotep, Shalom, Assalamu alaikum, Habarakani, Alafia, and Ashe. Peace, peace, brothers and sisters. If you would like more information about this lecture or any of our previous lectures, please shoot us a text at 773-846-3091. If you would like to support our grassroots ministry here in Chicago, Illinois, you can shoot us a donation on Cash App at Toma Nation Chicago 13. Black power, brothers and sisters. Black power.